you might as well pay attention to this one thing that's all there is, ever, is the now. The form changes. So here we have, now what do we mean when we say the form of the present moment changes continuously? And this is why people believe there are many moments every day, but there aren't. It's always now. Okay. Now, what the mind says, what do you mean? It's a meaningless statement. It's always now. Or the mind says, you said that half an hour ago. Or you might even have written it down. There's only the now. Okay, what's next? I want more information, please. I'm collecting information because maybe if I collect enough information, I'll be happy. You have to go a little deeper into what we call the now. And that involves not just what you perceive, it involves something else that is always present. Let's just put it this way. By the way, whatever words we now use, especially now that we get to the deeper levels, whatever words I use now are not quite it. They are only pointers towards it. So I have to mention this now because there are always some people who are very much identified with words, which after all are only verbalized thoughts. And they grasp with all this. I don't like the way you're putting this. I don't agree with this phrase or how you that expression. Or it's not quite right. Of course, it's not right, because language comes from the world of physical objects, and it works on that level. The table is here. That works and makes sense. But even if you look more deeply, that's not true either. But let's leave that alone. There is no table, of course. There's something else. We see it as a table, but it's an energy field. So let's not get into this. So language is never quite right. So it's only used as a signpost to point beyond itself in spiritual discourse. True spiritual discourse, language only has the function of a signpost. So now, I mention this now so that your mind, not you, because you know the truth, but if your mind is blocking the deep knowing that is already inside you, if your mind is blocking it, your mind is then attaches itself to the words and says, I don't like these words, I would use different words. Well, fine, doesn't matter. It's like examining a signpost that says Rome, and instead of going to Rome, you say, I don't like the way this is written, this signpost. I don't like the color. I don't like the letters. And then okay, I'll write another one. And years later, you're still writing signposts, or you're collecting the signposts. So no word we use is absolutely right. Knowing that, we can continue to use words, knowing that they only point to something that's beyond. Okay, here we go. There's something inside you that already knows all this, and your mind might say, and this is how silly the human mind is, nothing personal, the mind might say, oh no, I don't know the truth. Of course the mind doesn't know the truth. If you sit here and it feels good to be here because listening to these words is virtually as if you are listening to a truth that you already know, that means you are open to that dimension within yourself that's deeper than thought, because there you already know. there is already a deep knowing that is not conceptual. In other words, is not thinking. So this can be sometimes experienced in a gap between two thoughts. And you realize you're awake and present, but not thinking for just a little gap. Don't try not to think. Just observe the gaps that arise in your life spontaneously from time to time, and you're actually, this is the beginning of realizing that dimension. Is not by trying to put yourself into some state, but by realizing that this state is already arising in your life spontaneously. And the mind doesn't even know that, because it knows nothing about that which is beyond the mind. So, for example, you may find yourself sometimes being in a state of alive joy for no particular reason. Not because something good has just happened, it's just you look around, perhaps at a cloud or the sky or a tree or an animal, and you feel a deep sense of peace, presence, and aliveness, or another human being. You meet another human being and you don't want anything from him or her. There's simply an outflow of spacious attention towards another human being. That spaciousness has nothing to do with thinking. And this is why I use the expression space consciousness. This is not a science fiction term, and it is not something abstract. It is something that is already in you, but is so easily overlooked, because this object consciousness, which is the grasping mind, is looking for all the answers on the level of mind objects. In other words, things that it can grasp. The mind is an interesting fact that in the way we use language, we say the mind grasps it in the sense of understands it. That's what the mind, it says, there it is, here, now I can examine it. Or there it is, it's mine. There it is, I can analyze and dissect it and find out all about it. I cut it into pieces. Okay, even smaller pieces. I can analyze each piece. And even smaller pieces. And then each piece, I can do a PhD on that, and another PhD on that. And so knowledge proliferates. And there's so much knowledge, it is vast. Most PhDs are read by 3 people. Only the very few in the world who share your speciality, just that field. Only 1 or 2 in the world can understand what your PhD is about. This is how specialized knowledge has become, and it is object knowledge, object consciousness. Every thought is a thought form. It is an energy form that has a certain lifespan, unless you're an unfortunate one and your entire space is occupied by one big proliferating thought, like in the number 23 in the film. But this is an extreme case. It happens to many people. Completely obsessed with object consciousness. Almost everybody is completely drawn into the mind's attempt to grasp at things, identify with thought forms. It often identifies with external objects, of course, but every object represents really a thought in your head. There isn't, Who knows whether there's even anything out there, but we know that there's a thought that this is my car, or this is my house, or this is my this, and this is my position, this is my position in society, and so on. These are all things that belong to the realm of object consciousness. And almost everybody except those who are awakening now, which includes everybody who is still here, otherwise they wouldn't be here anymore, except maybe one or two whose partner is holding them down to the chair. You stay here and listen to this. But anybody who is still here free, voluntarily, and hasn't left, or is not feeling upset or angry, and if there are one or two who are feeling upset and angry, I suggest you look at that and say, isn't that interesting? There it is. And by looking at that, a little bit of space, you're not totally possessed by the object consciousness. Just the looking, and I use looking not just meaning visual, just paying attention. Attention is liberating. Just paying attention and look, bring your awareness to whatever is here. And here we get to the deeper meaning of now. We already mentioned the form of the now continuously changes. It's like, it's so fleeting, the forms that life takes, that you could describe it as vapor, vaporous stuff. The forms look very solid, but they continuously come and go in your life. The now takes continuously fluctuating forms. Okay. The form of this now is the room, is the voice, is your body, and whatever feelings you have. And is there anything else, perhaps, that we have been overlooking that's an essential dimension? Yes, there is. Let's see what that is. You could say, and it has been said by poets and philosophers and some spiritual teachers, that the life that we experience is dreamlike, because all the forms are so fleeting. And let's just say, okay, we don't know whether this gathering here is actually a dream that you are dreaming, or real. Now, I don't want to go into that too far, because that would become perhaps philosophy. And for that you can go take a course at UCLA, if they're still doing philosophy. Here, this moment, the form that this moment takes could be a dream. But even if it is a dream, and we don't know, because is there anything we can know for sure? We cannot know for sure that this is not a dream. It may be that you are having a dream in which a person sits on a stage and says, perhaps this is a dream. And that person in your dream is saying, perhaps it is possible to wake up out of this dream. And you go, oh, I may be dreaming. But even if it is a dream, there must be something, there must be a field or a space or a light, whatever you want to call it, in which the dream happens. Otherwise it wouldn't be. So there must be We can say the dreamer of the dream, or we can say the consciousness or the space in which this dream appears and is known. And that, the existence of that, we cannot doubt.